everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Not So Wide Divide. Today, Cody brought up a really interesting topic, just kind of by text over the last couple of weeks of some topics that we're going to get into. And he brought up the secession of the states from the Union, which I thought was a very good topic. I wish Tori was here to discuss this with us.
Right.
But unfortunately, he's got some stuff that he has to take care of today. So I'm going to kind of get into it and see where this goes, because we haven't had, normally we kind of have, 5-10 minute discussions on certain things just to kind of feel out the specific topics. And this one we haven't. We just kind of text about specific topics that we could discuss. And we said, you know what, let's dive into it. So first, I want to ask you, where did this topic come about? Why you said this is something you want to discuss?
I saw it was a news article about a poll that they put out about secession, and specifically, it was, maybe we can try pulling a poll up, but I want to say it was something around 34 to 40% of generalized population I think it was 30 to 40% of independents were in favor of secession, and somewhere along the lines of like 60-something% of Southerners were in favor of seceding from the Union. And it just kind of struck me like it's something that would be worth discussing and talking about.
Shocking poll finds many Americans now want to secede from the United States. 37% of respondents indicated a willingness to secede. Now this is from thehill.com. I'm not familiar with this website.
Yeah, I'm not
I don't
either.
know if this website has any political affiliations or sightings. I'm not sure. But it's fairly new, July 15th, 2021. So, I mean, it is pretty, and again, a lot of this stems back in the division that we always talk about, the division of this country, which is it's alarming to us. And I mean, specifically, I know I kind of I'm trying to find the poll and talk.
Well, if you go up, it had a few
it?
bullet points of like, let's go back down a little bit, a little bit more. If you look there, support among Southern Republicans grew from polling conducted in January, which showed 50% were in favor of secession, but the number leapt to 66% in June.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and I hear the term peaceful divorce being thrown around, man. And
where do you hear? Because this was new. I mean, I'll backtrack a second. So Texas has always been a state. Texas is a heavily Republican state, and they've always had the idea of secession from the U.S. That has always been a topic. You can Google it. There's actually been petitions and there's been bills.
Yep.
They're one of the major states that I don't know any other state that pushes for it or has pushed. I don't know if they're currently doing it.
Well, there's actually a few counties, not in Texas. I remember where it's at. It's somewhere, I think maybe around Seattle or something. That it was actually 3 counties that actually voted in favor of seceding from their state to join, I think, Idaho or something like that, like a neighboring state, and they were kind of on the border to actually leave the state that they were in to go to another state.
Yeah, I did read about that. But that's a whole, that'll never happen.
Right.
State boundaries, state guidelines. You want to leave your state, you have the option to move.
Right.
But the land is not, it's your land.
Right.
You bought it. But so that specific, I remember reading about it. So Washington as a state is pretty divided. Obviously, metropolitan areas, Seattle, all of those areas are extremely liberal. Mm-hmm. But the east side of the state is extremely conservative. It's all your farmers. It's all your herders. A lot of cattle. A lot of and of course, typically they are, and surprisingly, especially in Washington, even the conservative folks are still fairly socially liberal. but they are, conservative in almost every aspect of their life. Like, you do what you want to do, which is fine, but don't kind of come impede on me. Right. And so that was the whole argument behind there. But I do remember that. But this is shocking, man. This is really mind blowing. That I don't. Again,
and the thing that stood up the most to me, it wasn't. Yes, the 66% of Southern Republicans wanting to secede was shocking, but in today's environment, in today's atmosphere, and that wasn't as shocking to me as much as the 30 to 40% of independents.
Oh, this one's saying 40% of Democrats, West Coast Democrats.
Yeah, they well, from what I understand, California wanted to secede from.
That's happened in the past, yeah.
From the union as well. From the opposite side, there were a bunch of claims of if Trump won the last election, that they wanted to secede from the union and start their own country.
47% of Democrats, California, Oregon, Washington, Alaska, and Hawaii, which breaks up 1/3 of the West Coast independents, which also includes 1/3 of West Coast independents, were in favor, and also 27% of West Coast Republicans. It's pretty good.
Right, so it's not, and I'm glad you brought that up, because it's not, like you see the Confederate flag and stuff, it's not just Southerners, it's not just Republicans.
No, it's both sides.
It's both sides. And I think a lot of that to blame is our politicians, man, and how polarizing they turning everything into. It's exhausting. And
so here it is. This was, I like seeing this. Visuals help me. So I kind of zoom on this on the camera, but kind of breaks down independent Democrat Republicans in the specific region, specific mountain, heartland, south, and northeast. And these are the percentages of people that support seceding from the U.S. And forming new regional unions.
Now that's people that took the poll.
Correct. Good point. Yeah. But I mean, this is where they're getting the numbers from.
Right.
People that took the poll.
Right.
Which bothers me.
That's June of 2021, man.
Yeah. Yes.
And Alaska just sitting out there with no, and Hawaii.
Well, they're part of this specific region.
Okay.
Yeah, they're part of this specific region.
They didn't call them up as a screw Alaska.
Well, no, that's part of the what I read earlier.
Yeah, it's part of that.
Yeah, that they
Pacific.
Which is crazy because I know, I don't know. I don't want to say no because again, Tori makes it a point. The words that I say sometimes he makes me use them very literal. I don't know. But I have seen enough, just Alaskan shows and stuff like that. That I mean, majority of Alaskans, they're Alaskans. They're kind of
right.
They don't even really put themselves.
I would imagine Hawaii, like Native Hawaiians, probably feel the same way.
Even people that move to Alaska, that from Kansas, whatever. It's you become an Alaskan. It's a completely separate life. It's because they don't say the United States. They say the lower 48.
Right. You're right.
It's just a terminology they use. There is no. I mean, they have the benefits of being, with us, and I guess a lot of them maybe don't even consider it benefits,
right.
Because they don't get, I guess, certain things just because of the distance. But I think it's alarming that this amount of people, and again, we understand that it is the percentage of people that took the survey.
Right.
It's like if they took a survey between two of us, it would be 100% that say don't succeed.
Right. Well, I mean, we talked for like 10 seconds as we were putting up microphones on and stuff. My take on it, I am not in favor of secession. I understand the feelings and I understand the reasonings for wanting to. I just don't believe that the greatest country in the world would survive if we broke up into regions like that.
It would no longer be a country.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, you're right. We wouldn't be a country. We wouldn't be the United States anymore. But even our territories or whatever you want to call each little region, because we're already basically regional anyway.
Correct.
But I think it's foolish to think that divided we can stand. I don't.
I think you could.
I don't. I don't think that without imagine a world without the might of the United States.
That's where I was going to go.
Without our economy, without
I'm not. You could survive, but you would survive like the Czech Republic. You
right,
would survive.
right. We wouldn't be.
You wouldn't. We would not be, and there would be no region that would even be comparable to, any mass. I mean, China and Russia would definitely. I mean, China's already in a position to be a global power, to be the global power.
Right, but we are the check and balance to
Absolutely.
a lot of that.
I agree with that.
And I guarantee you, if you went poll to people in China to see who wanted the United States to break up, it'd be 100%. But they would. A lot of these global powers would love to see the United States break off into regions like that because the checks and balances gets thrown off. So globally and nationally.
Look at the Soviet Union when they split up.
Right.
I mean, the Soviet Union was truly China 30 years ago. Like, they were the next one to say, okay, if anybody's going to take the world leader role, it was going to be Russia.
Right.
But then, of course, when the Soviet Union broke up and people migrated to better opportunities, people migrated to places that had more, better weather or better job opportunities and better places to raise their families and stuff like that. And I think it would kind of be, I don't want to say the same thing, but you'll have migration of people that feel a specific way in certain regional countries in the United States that will prosper. You'll have another civil war, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, I mean, how long before
you start trying to conquer other countries?
One of these regions decides, you know what? I know we seceded, but God dog, man, that oil looks very, very enticing in the South. So let's march. We don't have the manpower. Oh, but I bet if we sided with China,
make some allies.
We can make some allies, and we can absolutely
definitely
go. So I've said it, from time to time when just talking about the Civil War. I think it's foolish to believe that had our union broken up, that there's a strong possibility we could be speaking Chinese right now, or Russian, or whatever, because I don't think that these other countries would I don't think there'd be as much hesitation for them to attack, or like you said, to ally with one of these regions, and then now you're looking at all-out war.
Well, especially the regions, the important regions, your ports,
right?
Places that have better
your agriculture,
access
your
absolutely,
your industry. I mean, it just.
Unless
I think it would be the
some
end
kind
of
of ridiculous, it would no doubt, it would definitely hands down be the end of
life as we know it.
Yeah, absolutely. Because again, you start creating so many different options, or not just options, but just situations to where people are going to take over on certain things. Whether, like I said, I mean,
but even
how do you even divide military? How do you divide? Like, I just don't even. I think it's a ridiculous conversation,
right,
for a place to come and say, okay, do I think Texas can survive as an independent country?
Like the Republic of Texas?
Yes,
right,
I do. Hands down,
if they're allied with the United States, they could.
Well, it would be kind of like I said, like a Mexico-Canada kind of. We'd have to have some kind of trade embargo. Because again, Texas, as much as you can build greenhouses and shit, Texas ain't the best place to grow anything.
Right.
But they have oil, and they have things that are trade. They have an economy. They have a robust population. They have land. They have plenty of things in places to become an independent. Arkansas is another state. Arkansas, people don't, geographically, I know a decent amount of information about each state, but Arkansas is another state that, as small as it is, it can 100% occupy itself and pretty much not need hardly anything from anybody else, as long as nobody else is consuming their goods.
Right.
They operate as a state, probably one of the most fiscally responsible states. Their budget has always kind of been in line. Their financial policies are like no other. Just to give you a relation into what we do in the financial section, I could not operate my business in the state of Arkansas. The rate caps that they allow, only banks can lend money in the state of Arkansas.
Wow.
It limits their consumers. You can't just borrow freely. And I don't know if you ever noticed, and probably not, but if you ever get a little credit card thing in the mail, like a credit card application, always look at the fine print. Arkansas is on in that fine print. If you live in the state of Arkansas, you can't apply.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Arkansas has really, really crazy financial laws. I say crazy. I mean, it's voted on by the people, so it's not
right.
It's what they choose. So yeah, it really limits it. But they can grow anything. They have great water supply. They have great oil. Louisiana would struggle. As again, unless we have really good alliances.
I don't know if we would necessarily. It depends on your definition of struggle. Like, we do have consumables that we can trade with for those type of things, and we can grow pretty much anything that we need here. We have cattle, we have seafood, we won't starve.
No, we won't starve, but we won't be financially.
I think we would be in a state of, I think, regression as far as just quality of life.
That's what. Yes.
I think we would probably take a step back 30, 40 years is what it would feel like living in Louisiana.
Unless we joined another state.
Right.
I think if Louisiana, Arkansas, not Mississippi, but Louisiana, Arkansas, Louisiana, and Texas.
Right. All three of us. Right.
Yeah, would be it'd be fine. I like that Hunger Games map. I don't know if you ever seen that.
Yeah, I've seen. My daughter's a huge fan of Hunger Games.
No, but I'm saying
she's probably the map and
country and people do TikToks or whatever. And like, well, I would pick this region or this region. I no doubt the South would survive. I think we would be the strongest overall district, but we would need more than just the state of Louisiana.
Right. Well, yeah, you would have to have
population
all of it.
Wise does not suffice.
Right.
But
again, that's if we're left alone to be on our own, and it brings.
Well, I just mean like we talk about conquering, like other states come over and say, hey, you know what, like Texas, hey, we run them on oil. We need some, Louisiana. Right. I mean, you can look at just sheer numbers.
Right.
My daughter just went to Los Angeles, and I was just looking, kind of saying, hey, she was in awe of the people and how big. And,
right.
And so let me just put something in perspective for you real quick. L.A. County, the county. Talking about city limit, not talking about South County. The county, Los Angeles County, has over 11 million people.
Right. That's more people than we have in our whole state.
The state has 5.5 million.
Right. Yeah.
So that one county has double the population of our state.
Right. Yeah.
But
that's why, again, why we are a democratic republic, not a true democracy. Is so that states like California and New York don't always decide what goes on with the rest of the United States. But it brings me to the whole I'm ready for a civil war kind of conversation. And when people say those things,
you see, I'm glad I'm not no circles. I don't hear that, and it's kind of.
But well, I mean, I do hear it, and I will say this: the vast majority of those people have not seen true violence. They haven't witnessed it to a level that some of us have. They don't realize that war or those things will not be fought in some distant area. It'll be fought on our front lawns. Our kids will be exposed to that. Our families will be in danger. It's
not going to be just an exposure.
Right, but I'm not even talking about.
Your 13-year-old is going to go to battle.
Possibly.
It's not. Again, if you live in this state, they will, because you're going to need every man, woman, and child if that would happen.
And I don't know if the majority of people who talk like that are even capable of the amount of violence it would take to have any kind of semblance of victory.
No.
In that.
No. Because their closest remembrance of that violence that they didn't experience firsthand is probably 9/11.
I would venture to say a lot of it is just television and video games and those type of things that make it look like it's a almost like romanticized, I guess, for lack of a better term. It's different when you can see it and smell it. It's different when the consequences are real. There's a very interesting book, if you ever want to do some reading on just the act of killing and the act of combat. Lieutenant Colonel Grossman wrote 2 books on killing and on combat, and it breaks down the psychological ramifications of both, and it goes into just society as a whole and the desensitizing to killing and just they're phenomenal psychological reasons. What he did was he looked at just the evolution of combat and the act of killing another human being, and prior to, I think, Vietnam, I want to say Civil War, World War I, World War II, those type of things, only a small percentage of frontline soldiers actually fired their weapons in combat with the intent of killing another human being. There were countless amounts of rifles or muskets or whatever you want to call them found in the Battle of Gettysburg that were double and triple loaded. Soldiers literally just going through the motion of loading their weapon, pointing it, but never firing. I saw a pretty interesting study that the way combat was done, Civil War and pre-Civil War area of troops lining up across from each other and firing, that if everyone was shooting their rifle with the intent of wounding or killing their opponent, the longest a battle should have lasted was like 10 minutes. Doesn't matter.
Hours and days.
Hours and days, right? Because the act of killing another human being as a species, we don't want to have to do that.
Well, that goes even back in the firing squad days.
Right. Nobody knew which rifle was loaded, which one wasn't. One of them had a blank in it, so you never knew for sure if you fired a deadly shot. But through studies like conducted by Grossman and his predecessors, you go from, I think, World War II, it was somewhere around 14, 15, 16% of frontline soldiers fired their weapon with the intent to kill. And then you fast forward to Vietnam, and that number goes up to like 95%. And what happened was the military stopped using bullseye targets to practice and started using silhouette targets to practice, so the targets actually look like humans, and it desensitized them to kill. But the majority of people don't have that kind of training. So
even the ones that have the training.
Oh yeah, even then,
look at
right?
Because again, you really, I don't want to say you didn't have it, but it wasn't to the numbers. The PTSD and the people that truly have, I'd say, mental disorders at this point from
right.
Because the training, all the training in the world,
the training just prepares you to actually pull the trigger.
Exactly.
It doesn't prepare you to deal with the after effects of prolonged combat or the taking of another human being's life.
And dude, I'll go one step further, and it's just because I'm an avid hunter, and it's the same thing in people that hunt. I know people that truly hunt for the thrill of killing something.
Right. Oh yeah.
And it disturbs me, even as a hunter, because I look at this and I'm going, and my oldest son was 13 when he shot his first deer. He cried afterwards.
Oh yeah.
And I said, that's fine. Like, at least I know you feel this. It's not, you didn't just, because that scares the shit out of me when I hear some of these guys in hunting camp and they get a thrill out of killing something. And hunting to me is so much more than just killing something.
Right.
Because even to this day, it's still an emotional thing to pull a trigger and kill an animal.
Yeah, I'm not killing someone if I'm not intending to eat it. And,
Absolutely,
right,
and that's what I teach and we push but I've never been formally trained. I've never been, I have, researched and read and had classes in psychology and all this stuff, but I can't imagine the fortitude to sit there across from somebody and pull a trigger and kill somebody for no reason, just because they're on the other side of a fence, because they're on the other side of a wall. Man, look, I couldn't tell you what mentally that would do to majority of people, and I'll use your line of work, an instance of having to pull a trigger because it's going to be you or me. That's a little bit, I don't want to say easier, because easy is not the word, but that's a little bit more, I guess, understanding, or I can compartmentalize that a little bit easier than just firing blankly into a crowd of people standing opposed to me.
Well, I mean, even in that situation, even those soldiers were faced with it's you or me, regardless of the reason why you're on the battlefield in the first place.
Well, I don't mean but even like,
but even with that, even with those stakes, and it's one of the things that Grossman goes over. It's easier to die for someone as a human than it is to kill for someone.
Absolutely, it's a great quote.
And
say that again.
It's easier to die for someone than it is to kill for someone. It is, because the human psyche is not designed to be to just aimlessly kill people. Like it's not something that we're supposed to want to do as a species, right? And you do have, of course, you have your fringe, your psychopaths and those type of things, but
yeah, but that's not the
norm.
That's less than 1% of 1%,
right?
And look, I honestly think some of these, like, I don't want to say names, but I think it was one of the Trail or one of those guys, one of the our SEALs that are known. One of them, Marcus Luttrell comes to mind.
There is a very, and it's one of the things Grossman covers too. There is a very thin line between psychopaths and special force operators for the U.S. military.
Even that's why I think Marcus Luttrell said that. He was, I don't know, look him up if you don't know who he is. Navy SEAL, been in multiple combats, was in one of the Lone Survivor movie. Lone Survivor. He was the guy. And I mean, look, today I would think he's fine when you look at him, but that guy's got mentally, like you said, I don't think it would. I think it's a daily, minute by minute struggle for him in his brain to keep right and to consistently compartmentalize the things that
I think a lot of the difference, and this is just my own thoughts, the difference between a special forces operator and a psychopath is a moral compass and having a degree of empathy. Psychopaths don't have that at all whatsoever.
Can't have it. Can't develop it. That's what makes him a narcissistic,
right?
Psychopath.
And I think that's the difference between the two.
I tell you what, it's not hard.
It's not
to lose it.
Well, but that's why PTSD is such a scary, horrible thing. Because you're right, you can condition someone to lose that. Absolutely.
I think our military does a really shitty job when it comes to some of these guys. They're
getting better.
They are getting better, but I think I think they're only getting better because they were kind of force fed to get better.
Well, yeah, that has a lot to do with it.
Because I think a lot of these guys, and I don't know this, Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman, but I'll definitely read up on him and see, because I never knew who he was, but
he's also gone to a lot of these early active shooter incidences, like at schools and stuff, and he helps with the counseling on that. And a lot of his research going into the books was done in those two with his book on killing. A lot of his research and aftermath stuff comes from those as well. He's got three like I guess renowned books, but the two that I've read is On Combat and On Killing. Very interesting reads. And because of my profession, it's something unfortunate that we're sometimes faced with. So having an understanding of it and understanding of what psychologically and physically that your body can go through after one of these incidences, it's good to know that a lot of the things that your body does is normal, but I know we kind of got off the secession topic, but the reason I'm getting at that is I don't think people truly understand the gravity of what they're romanticizing and what they think that they're ready for when they are not.
They simply look at it as a political argument. It's a political positioning tool. They don't realize, and when you sent this to me, the first thing I Googled was federal funding.
That's a huge thing too.
Do you realize that I'm gonna have to find it? It's an like 90 some odd % of states consume more federal funds than they give.
I can believe that.
So how in the hell?
Right.
Because I love the argument. Well, we pay the federal tax, so we should get it back. I don't disagree with that. That's what it's for. But our argument when we were talking about this was episodes ago. Whenever you said something of the nature that it's our money, the country is not a business, right? You made that comment. I said, well, it kind of is. So, and this brings that they can't pay everybody more than they give if they don't make money off of your money.
Right.
They can't. But that's what we're doing, right? Because we do make money off
bonds and right. I get that. Now I guess the argument would be that the states, if the southern states made the Southern Union or whatever,
it ain't just the Southern like
that. No, what I'm getting at is I guess the argument would be made that each individual region could still do those type of investments and still your federal funding would just come from a smaller pool, but you'd also have a smaller population to take care of with that. Those numbers are scary, man. Because again, I don't want to secede.
I don't think most people succeed, and if you do, let's look back at all of the federal money that was granted to you, minus what you've paid into it, and before you can succeed, you have to pay that back to the federal government.
But there won't be a federal government.
There will be, because there's still going to be portions of the country that want to stay together.
But who gets to claim USA?
Whoever doesn't want to leave it.
So D.C., I mean, I would imagine, because that's where everything is based out of, that area.
Well, I'm saying, because, I mean, if you have, so just the...
But what I'm getting at is like that map we showed earlier.
Yeah.
That was several. That wasn't just like the South seceding. That was the United States breaking up into 5
I got
different regions.
But what I'm saying is that I don't think that is ever reality.
But it could be.
Well,
If the South seceded and was allowed to just leave the Union with no battles, like just like they say that whole happy divorce or whatever, what's to stop the West Coast from saying the same thing? Well, shit, we don't, we want to start our own thing. So you kind of have that snowball effect, I believe.
I don't think that would happen. I think if you'd have a certain region, right? I don't think it would ever happen in regions, because I don't think it'd be overwhelmingly. Again, the only states that I can think of over the last years that have truly made this a possibility, right, is Texas, Florida, and California.
Right.
Those are 3 states that have pushed for secession in the past, that have actually had it go to the House and to the Senate, their states. Texas being one. So if it would happen, I think if it ever would happen, which is a reality, could happen, it would be in a state by state situation.
Yeah, but that's how it happened during the Civil War too. Is a few states seceded and then a few more, And then they found that, well, if this is going to be successful, we got to join together. And that's
where I was going, yes.
that's where you got your Confederate States of America was, you know, and look, I can see if Texas seceded, I don't think we'd be too far behind them. I really don't. I think that if Texas, that's all it would take, was one major state to secede, and then I think you would see a few other ones start to jump on board, and then you would see a few more, and then you would see several more, until you had an entire region.
Yeah, until they realized that the rest of the United States, because you could be the Republic of Texas, right, or Republic of Louisiana, whatever you want to be,
or the Southern Republic, or whatever,
Southern Republic,
whatever,
Western Republic, whatever happens,
right?
You're still going to have the United States, because it's not going to go anywhere, right? Because you still that's still done. That's still the entity, right? So again, I could kind of compare everything to a business basis. So if you take, you know, and that's the whole idea of a monopoly, right? You take, you know, Standard Oil, right? Standard Oil in the 1920s was the monopoly in oil business, controlled 98% of the oil in the United States. Government came in and said, we're going to break you up.
Right.
So in essence, the same idea. We want to break up, or a conglomerate like GE starts selling off components of their business. You know, at some point, that conglomerate starts doing what they sold off again. At some point, or they come back around. They wind up buying their business back because it didn't work, because it became successful. So they say, hey, look, you're going to need us again.
Right.
You know, and that's just the history of when things break off, they eventually come back, either by failure or success.
Yeah. And I mean, I can see that with California breaking off, and then financially, because they're already financially
They've been
in
bankrupt
shambles,
for the last
right?
20 years.
So I can definitely see if a state like that broke off and realized the level of poverty that they would go through.
Would they, or would they be just like Mexico? They start infiltrating and coming over and.
Well, I mean, and that's another good point too. And then do they start soaking up all our federal aid? I mean, all our foreign aid. You know?
No, because that you would have foreign aid to. Because again, the United States won't have the federal dollars that they have now to give in foreign aid,
But I'm saying that just California broke off, we would still have a substantial amount of money as the United States, because California, again, they I'm sure if we could find it in here, I'm sure they take up a lot of federal funding too.
That's fine, Cali.
Would they start getting foreign aid?
Where's California?
I don't know. Right there, CA.
That's
down at the right here. Is that California?
That's it, California. So surprisingly, yeah, they're not the highest, but so they're pretty even. So California's federal spending that they receive now this is per person in the state. So still overall dollars way more because they have so many people.
Right.
But they receive from the Federal Reserve $11,030, and they actually pay to the Reserve $11,019. So they still receive more than they pay.
Right.
At an number per person. You say, oh, it's pretty even per person, but when you magnitude that times 50 million people,
right,
and compared to.
So where are we at there? I wonder, just out of curiosity, where's LA?
Where is Louisiana? Right here. So we receive $11,103 per person. We pay $7,300 per person.
So we actually are a bigger burden
we spend per person
than California is.
$4,000 per person more than we pay to the federal government. These are 2018 numbers.
I wonder how much it has to do with the amount of.
Look at Virginia.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Double.
That's crazy. But I wonder how many, because the majority of taxes are paid by. I'm just talking about dollar amount, percentages. The majority of the percentage of taxes is paid by your upper middle class and higher.
Correct.
So I wonder how much the poverty level in Virginia is versus California. Like I know I'm not talking about what I'm saying is like that difference in, because there's a whole lot more upper class, I think, in California than there is in Virginia.
So, yes.
So of course more taxes are going to be coming out of those areas because there's more people paying.
Well, so I mean,
You know what I mean?
California's a bad example because their state income tax, like Louisiana's high, our state income tax is like 6%, the highest bracket. California's like 20.
Well, right, but that's
So you literally, if you are let's say right at the 1%, if you make $400,000 a year, right? If you live in the state of California, $400,000 a year, you're paying 64% of that in taxes.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Income tax. That's not counting property tax.
Sales taxes, right. Yeah, that's crazy.
64%.
But that's why people
That's why you're wealthier leaving.
are leaving, right?
You know. But again, this is something else that people like. Even the wealthy that live in California, there's a good percentage of them that don't reside
That's
in
true.
California.
That's a good point. That is a very good point.
You know,
Right.
I know wealthy that live in Louisiana that reside in Florida.
So they pay Florida taxes.
Florida doesn't have state income
Right.
tax.
Right.
So I mean, if you make $1 million a year, and Louisiana is 6%, you're in that 6% tax bracket in Louisiana just in state income tax.
Right.
You know, they're going to have their residence in Florida. They're going to have their beach house in Florida regardless. Right. You know, but to save 6% of $1 million, that's a chunk of change.
Absolutely.
You know,
But you know, I man, that poll, and not the income tax poll,
No, the
but the
percentage of
percentage of people wanting to. It was shocking to me, man. That's why I sent it to you. That's why I wanted to discuss it. And like I said, I wish Tori was here to get his opinion on it as well. But it just, when you start getting a majority of the people in those polls that are in favor or would be in favor of secession, it's scary to me, man. And I think that we need to have more people take into consideration the gravity of what they're asking for, especially those that are advocating. I don't want to say advocating violence, but talk about I'm ready for the whatever. I look at most of those people and I'm like, man, are you really though?
no,
Like, are you really? Because I don't think you are.
no.
And I don't think the majority of people are. I think they just talk out of their rear end. And some may be, granted, but I think the vast majority of people are just, they're not ready for that. They're not mentally or physically prepared for that. Now, would the United States let a secession happen in a peaceful divorce scenario? I don't know. But even with that, even a non-combative secession, I think tips the scale.
Don't even see how it's possible.
But let's live in a fantasy world for a minute. Come down this fantasy rabbit hole with me. Let's go to Wonderland, and let's say that you know what, the left and the right shake on it, and we're gonna let the secession out. We're gonna split the country in half.
Split it down to Mississippi.
Whatever. Yeah, split right down to Mississippi. The issue that I have with that is globally, and I know people don't want to take into account a global thing when they're talking about a local issue, but it does have global ramifications which come back on us. And my point to that is that tips the global power scale away from, and puts it more towards the bad guys, which I consider China and Russia and these communist countries the bad guys, because or your I don't want to say Muslim, because not all Muslims are bad people. Your extreme Muslim parts of the world, they have a whole lot more weight and not
more,
enough.
more than the Muslim. It's the anti-American
right.
religious folks.
That's a lot better way of putting it. You're right. That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah,
is those type of people who want
anti-West.
Perfect. The power goes to them, and that check and balance system that we have in place gets skewed, and I don't think we survive as a nation divided like that. I don't think we do, and it's not just us. Those people are now more empowered to go and attack Israel. Mm-hmm. Those people are more empowered to go and attack the UK and all of our allies. You know, we are that beacon of hope, and we are that that nation that stands up and says that you know, we're going to be the ones that say no, you can't do that, and we'll fight back if you try to bring injustice, you know, to other countries. And without that yin and yang type thing, I don't see us as an independent nation of the southern states. I just don't see us surviving in a global world, because we're way more of a global world now than we were, you know. Well,
the Civil War times and those times, even before the, you know, the I would say early 2000s is when the whole globalization really took a forefront and everything. Before that, it wasn't. There was no globalization, and again, logistically, technology-wise, you know, it was much harder to get things across oceans, and but now, man, you can move mountains in a couple days.
Yeah.
You know, technology has done crazy things, and so it's. I agree with you 100%. I think the secession of any state, frickin' New Hampshire, could be devastating for us as a country because of, like you stated, the snowball effect of ideas and ideologies. And then again, then when it does happen, or if it does happen, that's what scares me the most, that you have these crazy regions of the United States. They're going to have these crazy ideologies, and then we'll be fighting constant wars on our own soil. That it's frivolous. Like
I mean, think about this. You take a whatever state, and we'll just use Texas since we've been picking on them the whole podcast. Well,
pick it on.
You know what I mean? If Texas left,
I don't want to go to war with Texas.
No, absolutely not. But what I'm getting at, let's say they leave. That throws a huge wrench in the republic, man, because we lose those. The conservative side of it loses those electoral votes. Mm-hmm. It loses those Senate seats. It loses those congressional seats, and it tips
political scale. Absolutely.
It tips the scale. So that's why I think it Right.
So if Texas leaves, California got to go.
Right.
So only way can happen. So convince them to leave too.
Right. But that's why I say if Texas did leave, we wouldn't be far behind, and most Republican states wouldn't be far behind, because we would have our voice is now lessened on a national level, where our
if you heard that on the mic, sorry.
That's all right. But our local opinions and our voices on that national level just becomes minuscule. So I wouldn't put it past the first couple of states being able to leave if they are Republican with a Democratic seat of power in DC, if that makes sense. Because if you're a Democrat and you're wanting to stay in power, or vice versa, having that a major state like Texas where all those electoral votes leave benefits you politically. But again, if that happened, Louisiana's not going to sit around and go, well, hold on. Now my voice doesn't count in Congress because we just lost all those, so I'm going with Texas. When Florida says, well, man, Louisiana got a point. And that's where that snowball.
Oh, I no
effect
doubt.
comes into
No
case.
doubt.
I don't think we'll ever just lose one state.
Yeah, I agree. I agree 100%. I just don't know. I don't know the process of which that would have to happen. Like, people have always talked about, I say people, states have always brought this up. Like I said, we keep mentioning Texas because I know Texas has.
Well, they're the loudest, you know.
Well, I mean, they have been a proponent for it for decades.
Right.
You know? And so, but they've never really had good traction. Like, I mean, it's never been like a reality. It's always been kind of like talking on, So I don't know the process of which that would have to happen. Like,
it would be, from what I understand, and I could be completely, maybe one of our viewers might be a little more educated on the actual secession process, but I think you have to make a declaration of secession that has to be voted on a state level.
which is, I'm pretty sure.
And then once that happens on that state level, then it gets brought to the federal level, and then I think federally they vote on if they're going to accept it or not.
Yeah, so the process of which for a state to succeed. So you were saying that I think state-wise, if we just look something up real quick, and I know it's you got to be 3/4 of your state has to approve, and then 2/3 of Congress.
Right.
So the chances of that happening,
very, very
when
slow.
you want to talk about the divide, not so wide. I mean, that would truly put. I get a lot of states being, I say a lot. Some states are at worst 60-40 on a political side.
Yeah.
You know, so that's still not a 3/4 of the state or 2/3 of the Congress.
But again, if it succeeded in a state like Texas, or I'll even go further, I think West Virginia, I want to say it's one of the Virginias I was looking at during the election. Just if there was any states that were all blue or all red, every county. It's either Virginia or West Virginia was entirely red, the whole state. There was no counties that were blue. So you take a state like that is very, very predominant, one side or the other. It doesn't matter if it's Democrat or Republican. We're just doing a thought process. And that state will probably be more likely to be able to get a secession. You're not going to get it in a state like Georgia or Louisiana, where we have big cities that are Democratic. You won't get that 2/3 vote. But these areas like Virginia or something like that, or West Virginia, whichever one it was, those states, you know, arguably could have happened, yeah. And if it does, then you would have states like Louisiana, Texas, where that majority would be more likely to vote because of that whole snowball effect. So, state level, I could see it possibly happening, but federally, I don't see that happening at all.
Trying to get out enough on this map to where people see it. So yeah, I would assume Virginia, for whatever reason, is not.
Look at West Virginia.
It is West Virginia,
yeah,
definitely.
There's no blue.
I mean, yeah, Donald Trump won 73% of the state.
But if you look at even county by county,
this is the county. I don't know.
There's no, like, if you zoomed in or whatever, there's no county in West Virginia that voted.
Look.
Yeah, but even that, it's only 42%. So as a county,
Charleston.
But as a county, that county was not blue.
Correct.
Like we're looking at like just the
literally city limits of Charleston.
Right. So you know, a place like that, 73%, man. That's.
Yeah.
You know.
I don't know about Virginia, Kentucky, and Missouri.
I don't know.
Missouri's a red state. Louisiana's not.
Yeah, I don't know why they don't. I don't know.
New York Times, man.
But you see where I'm getting at, you know, with that. I mean look at Nebraska,
Kansas,
right.
You know.
So could some of that happen? Yeah.
And then so again, just go to that Texas. There's no way that's going to be a 3/4 state.
Yeah, I mean, Austin, San Antonio, Houston, and Dallas are all blue. You know, and that's where your big major cities are. Yeah. Basically, your entire border is blue, you know. So I mean, that's not a 2/3 state. So it's
even as big as they are and as much as they are. I mean,
right, but population wise, those big cities are blue. That's where that balance comes in.
It's funny, man. So let's look at this, and I was pulling up the other. So I noticed, two states that stuck off to me back to back that actually pay more federal taxes than they receive are Utah and Colorado. And they're fairly, the other one is Indiana and Nebraska. Let's see what the other one was. I kind of noticed. Washington State is another one. Pays more than it receives. North Dakota pays more than it receives. Surprisingly, New York, and that's pays more than it receives.
But again, you have a lot of
wealthy people.
Wealth there.
Pay a high number of, and again, they like living there.
But so yeah, so you have to have. It's basically a vote.
Starts at the state level,
right? Then it goes to a congressional level.
2/3
and you got to have the congressional level, and then you even looking at. I'm sure you could probably have a presidential veto. Supreme Court would probably get involved in that kind of stuff. So there's
because it is unconstitutional.
Well, yes, it is unconstitutional to secede from the United States. So. Force is basically the only way.
Yeah,
I think that you have that happen in the expedient measure.
And there's no state or region, even if a coup would happen, that could take over.
Well, I did,
unless the military flips.
I saw a pretty interesting study. But it was actually two studies combined together. That it was a tabletop force versus force tabletop exercise done by the United States military, and basically what it was they did an exercise of if we ever had another civil war, left versus right, because it was I don't think you would have another civil war based on race. I think it would be politically, that's where that stuff would happen. So they actually did an exercise, and they took a lot of things into account. The conservatives in the police force, military, the whole 9 yards. And the military at the time of this study was 60-40, conservative versus liberal. With the majority of a lot of that liberal came from your leadership, right? It wasn't boots on the ground. Police force was about 50-50, liberal and conservative. So they took into account that if a civil war would break out, that a lot of the military would defect, one way or the other, right?
Of course.
That they would.
The same thing that happened.
Right.
Civil War.
But I think one of the most interesting things in that was it said that for a country to have a successful revolt, don't quote me on a number, it was something ridiculously low, like I think 13% of an armed populace revolting against this country is enough to have a successful overthrow of the government.
Yeah, I don't think that number is accurate when you're talking about this country.
It might not be, because we have a lot of armed. Our entire populace has the right to bear arms, but it was 13% of an armed populace in active revolt. Because the majority of people is just going to play the Switzerland role in it and say, I'm not getting involved in that. As long as you don't bring that on my doorstep, do you, I'm gonna do me, and don't get me involved in it. And that's where I think the majority of both sides would lie.
So what's the 360 million people in this country?
Something like that, yeah.
So if 40 million people,
I think about that. That's a huge number in active revolt, and then
it's more than our military,
right? And they
so that's a ideologically that makes sense to say that if we had 40 million Americans that created
like a militia or whatever,
militia.
Right?
It's good
army
term for it. Militia, a civilian militia. It would outnumber our military.
Yes.
But
But
we don't have the equipment
Well, but what they did in this exercise is
You'd have to overthrow a portion, like
well,
I don't even want to like
your national guard. Those are state level, and they have decent equipment. But if I'm going to defect from the United States, me and my platoon, okay, like we're conservatives and we're defecting to the South militia, whatever. I'm not leaving my tank behind. Right, I'm not leaving my helicopter. I'm taking that with me. I'm already committing treason.
Yeah, but you're one person that can fly the helicopter. You get shot, then we got a helicopter. Nobody fly it.
Right, I mean, I get that.
I mean,
but if my whole aerial platoon takes off in our helicopters, that's a big dent in those armed forces. Plus, what I look this is the stance that the force v force thing took. It was the conservative side in rebellion. That's how that stable stop exercise was set up. And the liberal side being the U.S. government, right, on the other side of it, and they during the exercise, the military leadership of the conservative side of it, it wasn't just an all-out war. They did things like attack the power grid for New York City, and California, Los Angeles, these really big. So now you have that population that's looting, right? And you have a criminal aspect that the police force is overwhelmed. They can't deal with that. So some of your military has to be brought in just for civil to stop the civil uprise, just of the criminal aspect of rioting and those type of things.
Well, they probably just let it go and concentrate on other areas.
But if you don't have an open enemy to fight, you have small skirmishes all over. Plus, you have rioting in these big, huge cities.
That's militia warfare,
right?
I mean, that's the whole idea behind that.
So in that tabletop exercise, the conservative side of it won the little exercise, but I don't know how much of that is just the advantage of the guerrilla style warfare. I don't know if they flipped sides, if the liberals were the ones that were in revolt, if they would have won too. It didn't get into that much detail about it, and I also don't know the level of the generals or whatever who were in charge of each side. That makes a difference in the leadership. So there's could be a lot of flaws, and it's not a guaranteed win on either side of it. But I don't want to fight that battle, man. You know.
And like we started this episode off with, I don't think anybody does when you truly have a conversation about it. Now you're going to have some nitwits on both sides, like you said, that be like, but they're not mentally okay. They're not part of this country. They're not decision makers. They're not anybody that's trying to be part of the society.
Right.
They're trying to be extremists. They're trying to be divisive. But if you actually put any amount of thought, just trying to, pass this, it's kind of mind blowing. Like, did y'all really think long term about this? Did you really go into detail?
No, I think it's a lot of emotional based decisions.
No doubt, man.
And those very rarely work out to the positive. But I mean, society-wise, we have a lot of our political leaders. They're from that era that makes a lot of emotional based decisions. Like they
I think
that's how they argue.
It's more of our younger, and I think our generation is included in that. This millennial / I don't know if it's Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z, whatever.
Right. ABC.
No, because you read different poll. I don't know what generation is. Where we're at on that millennial border.
Right.
It's such a split poll. When you go back to our parents, majority of, especially, they took in account of everyone when they made a decision. At least in my experiences, and not just, I don't mean just in my family experiences, just in my history of experiences in reading things, that when decisions were made, for the most part, it was for the country as a whole,
Right.
for the betterment of our country. Whether it was an easy decision, or a tough something,
Right.
It was still for the betterment of this country and the
As a
people
whole.
of this country.
Right.
And now, like you said, it's more of an emotional ties to the decision. If we
Right.
make this decision, it's going to hurt 10% of people. Yeah, that sucks.
Right.
But they never looked at that before. It was always in the aspect that
The
we're going to
majority.
help 90% of
Right,
these people.
right.
And that's the decision we have to make rather than making the decision not to hurt the 10%.
Right. And in retrospect, you end up hurting the 90%.
Well, you definitely,
Right,
yeah,
right.
by saving the 10, you hurt
Right.
the 90. It's kind of like the person that says, you need to amputate your leg or you're going to die. Well, I want to save my leg. No problem. Your leg will live until you die.
Right.
But you can be one leg and run around and you're good.
For the rest of your
Or
life,
you
yeah.
can have two legs for the next hour because you'll be dead.
Right.
So, nobody ever wants to make those decisions. For a country, for a community, for a business.
And a lot of it too, man, is immediate gratification. Right. They what's gonna make me feel better right now. And I guess a fear of judgment, and what's going to get me the most likes, not just social media, but just in general.
What's going to be more elections? We're going to be more votes.
Right.
Gonna be more, likes and votes run hand in hand.
Right.
Because I'm just saying shit and posting shit to make people think or do that, what I want them to do, rather than watching actions and going off of making your opinion off of that, rather than what you think you see or what I want you to see.
Right.
It's like that great street magician.
Yeah.
That's what politicians are, and it's not
Sleight of hand
it's
magicians.
a sleight of hands, baby, and it's not even. It's having everything else in motion that you don't see.
Yes.
That, and again, I hate tying it to a conspiracy, but there's so many examples of that in the conspiracy world. That we're doing this, and you don't realize, and then 5 years later you go, them dirty bastards.
Right.
Well,
it goes back to that old mantra. Just because I think people are out to get me doesn't mean that they're not.
correct. Yeah.
And some of those are legitimate.
It's just,
But I don't think
the world we live in today, man.
Yeah, but I think a lot of it is just people's frustration, and you take a poll and you may be pissed off that day at something that happened, and yeah, I'm ready to secede, but
like
in
you stated earlier, they're putting a poll that's 66% of Republicans. They never say it's the 66% of the 100 that they polled in Texas.
right.
They don't, and that's the frustrating part. And these little pollster manipulating mother.
Or it's the 66% of people, Republicans, in these these areas, but we only focus on the ones that are posting online about this, and
Well, that's
this.
the ones
that kind of stuff.
You know how many emails and shit you get about take this poll?
Yeah, I'm
give
not
us your
taking that
opinion?
shit, right.
No,
But
and we're opinionated people.
right. So some of it, like I said, could just be Johnny, who was having a bad day that day when the posters called. You know what? Yeah, I will take this poll. I'm gonna give you a piece of my mind, kind of thing. So some of it's that, and some of it's a lot easier to take a poll and say I'm for secession than pick up a rifle and say I'm for secession.
Yeah.
So I don't think we're at any real danger of seceding and grab your rifles, boys, we're going march.
Yeah, because you got to be careful, because one statement, especially now that we have not much of a platform, but some things that out there, might have some crazy nut that says, Coty says you better get ready. This might have secession.
Yeah, Coty did not say that.
I'm just saying,
Right.
look how many times, and I know I'm not comparing us to Joe Rogan, but they clip something out of one of his episodes, and it is, and even because I follow multiple different pages and stuff that that it's not run by Joe Rogan, it's by his fans and by
Right.
anti-fans and all the shit that you see. And it's like Joe Rogan said this, and it's like, if you listen to that's not what he said.
Right.
I mean, it's physically the 9 words that he said.
Right, but it's very much out of context.
Oh, Jesus. Right. So just to clarify, to kind of bring this thing to an end, you and I are both on the page that we don't think this is a possibility.
No.
And we're definitely not for it.
No, I'm not
or
for
support it in any kind of way. That, at least my position is, and then again, we try to tie everything back to why we do this. We are stronger together.
Yes, 100%.
United, we are, regardless of our differences. And if for any other reason, that's, this is why this country was created. This is why we're here. It's because we are the land of a place that you can have a different opinion, and we can still be in the same building.
Yes.
We can still be in the same church. You can still be in different church. You can do whatever the hell you want to do.
Yep.
So if you want to be your own state, fucking do it. And still get the ramifications and have the pride of why you are able to have your own state.
Yeah, we are the melting pot. And for our differences, however vast those may be, we're all Americans, man. And I'm a firm believer in, united we stand.
Divided we fall.
And I don't know about you, but how boring would it be if we were just in a big echo chamber? I like talking to people who have a different opinion than I do.
Obviously.
I think that out of those discussions comes the ability to make positive change, and out of those discussions, and out of a country full of a vast majority of different beliefs and different upbringings and different, that's how we're able to get people who can go to space on their own. Those things aren't possible
in any other country,
right? And without that, to use Louisiana reference, all that gumbo of people, those things just aren't possible. They don't happen.
Very good point.
It's our differences that make us unique, but it's also those differences that help join us together. I know we've talked off air, a few times about how beautiful 9/12 was, and not the ramifications of 9/11 attacks, but just the pride of our country, and everybody happy to be American. That's what people say, or mean when they say how great 9/12 was. It was just the pride and the coming together of people.
There was only one color.
Right.
I say that it was 3 colors.
3, red, white, and blue. Right.
There was race wasn't an issue. Income wasn't an issue.
Right.
You had, people that were homeless and millionaires scrapping to get things out of those buildings, helping anybody and everybody, bringing water, bringing food, coming together. You had every possibility of, income, race, religions joining the military.
Yep.
We had an influx of applications for citizenships, not from, but from other countries, right, to become a citizen, to join our military, to fight for, this atrocity that happened to this
Yep.
country. Where in the hell else does that happen?
It doesn't, and that's one of the uniqueness and great things about being American. So it's a fun rabbit hole, I guess, to go down, and a good conversation piece. But polls aside, I don't think we're in any kind of danger of having secession or even an all out, any type of armed conflict. But it's just, it's interesting to talk about, and that poll was just, it was shocking, the numbers to me. So that's why I brought it up and wanted to talk about it. So I appreciate you come down a rabbit hole, with
No,
me, like I've said. And
I enjoy it.
I wish Tori was here to get his opinion on it. To our viewers, what's your opinion? It doesn't have to be the same as us. Like I said, it's those differences that makes life interesting. So if you are for secession, tell us why. Tell us what's brought you to that point where you're ready to not be an American anymore. No judgment. Just it would be interesting to hear that. And if you agree with Jarred and I, or disagree with any point that we've made, hit the comment sections. Go to Facebook. Go to YouTube. Let's talk about it. We have these
It'll
podcasts.
be an interesting discussion. I promise you that, because we've laid out a lot of pretty good, valid arguments to both sides. I mean, if you do disagree, it's fine if you disagree. I would love to hear a valid argument on that.
Right, I would too, and not to get into, when we say argument, it's not to get into an argument.
No. That's what I said. A valid
discussion about it. Right. Truly, I would like to talk and see your side of it and your point of view. So please don't be shy about making comments. If any kind of arguments arise that are out of hand, we put a stop to that as administrators on the account. So don't feel like you're going to come in there and people are going to start bullying you or calling names and that kind of stuff. We won't allow that kind of conversation to ensue. But a healthy discussion is something that we welcome. We
encourage.
So please like, comment, subscribe. Looking forward to hearing from you guys. Thank y'all for listening. Jarred, thank you for having this discussion with me, and it was a good one.
It was. Again, I appreciate it. We continue to do this. It is truly the highlight of my day, my week when we do this. So again, I want to thank you for running through these with me and coming up with these topics. And again, I echo what Coty said. If you have any additional topics, conversations that you would like us to talk about, or you want to talk about with us, again, comment that. Let us know, because we don't know. We only talk about the spitball stuff that comes off the top of our brains. We love to have educated conversations with some experts in whatever fields that you say, hey, look, you guys were wrong, or I like your point, and bring some actually, some maybe validity to our topics and our opinions. Reach out to us. We have an email account, notsowidedivide@gmail.com. You can reach us. You can comment on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Like Coty said, like, follow, subscribe, and remember, the divide is not so wide.
Peace.